God Doesn't Give False Hope. Written and read by Sister Michelle Watson. Remember Joseph with the coat of many colors? Near the end of his up and down life story, Joseph saves his father, brothers, and the whole family from dying of starvation in the land of Canaan when famine hits. Joseph brings the Israelites to Goshen, a rural area outside of Egypt where he can provide enough food to keep them alive through the remaining years of bad harvests. Move to Egypt? That must have seemed like great news to Jacob and his family. And it was. But did they have any misgivings about leaving the land that God had given to their ancestors? Were they nervous about settling in a foreign place, surrounded by a worldly culture and people who worshipped other gods? Would they stay there forever? Maybe some of them grumbled that it was better to die on God's soil than to live on Egyptian land. Who knows? Here's what we do know. On the road, God speaks to Jacob in a vision, saying, "I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. I will go down with thee into Egypt, and I will also surely bring thee up again. And Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes." Genesis 46, 3-4. That phrase, "and I will surely bring thee up again," tells us that God did not intend for the Israelites' stay in Egypt to be permanent. He promises to bring them out. And here's what's interesting. The promise to bring them out is repeated and referenced several times throughout the remainder of Joseph's story. For example, when Jacob is near death, he asks Joseph not to bury him in Egypt, but instead take him back to Canaan and bury him there. Later, when Joseph is near death, he asks that they preserve his bones and carry them back to Canaan when the Lord leads them out of Egypt. Both men remind their families that God promised to bring them out. Why don't Jacob and Joseph want to be buried in Egypt? Well, because they don't want to be left behind when God brings his people back to Canaan. They want to be laid to rest in the land that Israel was meant to permanently occupy. They believed the Lord would keep his promise. Did he? Yes. Eventually. As you know, the Israelites multiplied and became a great nation, and a new Pharaoh enslaved them, and the oppression lasted for hundreds of years. Can you imagine how the Israelites must have clung to that promise during those years of forced labor? After several generations, did they start to doubt? Did they look at Joseph's embalmed body and shake their heads in despair? 400 years passed from when Joseph saved his family to when God raised Moses to lead them back to Canaan. That's a long time to wait for a promise to be fulfilled. But God is not in the business of making promises and then not fulfilling them. God doesn't give false hope. He doesn't raise our expectations, only to dash them to bits. He doesn't say one thing and do another. So if God has given you hope today, don't doubt it. He keeps his promises. He does what he says he'll do. It's our job to hold on and keep our eyes fixed on his hand of mercy until we see the promise fulfilled. If you're looking forward to the latter-day promises, especially the promises for the house of Joseph, then carry them with you, within your heart, and don't despair because they haven't yet become a reality. In our personal lives and in the great gospel timeline, God is always at work. Even if we can't see it, he doesn't give false hope. He will keep his promises. The Life of Joseph Scripture Study is a 40-day deep dive into Joseph's life, from birth to burial and beyond. In the description, you'll find links to the PDF version and an editable Google Docs version of the study. We hope you enjoy this resource.